so the service ended, and people went up, you could hear all the noise, to greet the new priest. This Polly Murray was a tiny colored, only she wanted to be called Negro with a capital N because she was very proud of her race. And she is the one that has practically taken Martin Luther King's place as leading the Negro movement. And she is an extremely well-educated person. She's a doctor of laws, and she was a charming, slight little person. And so ended the morning ceremony, and the children were then free to go take off their black robes that had these red stoles down and let out all their high spirits. They had been so composed and dignified when they processed up the aisle, and all the time they were sitting in the balcony, which was a long, long time for them, and they're singing. They really were a credit to the town and to Mr. Richard Wright, and Caroline Wright, his wife, who was so very, very pleased. Well, we all were very, very pleased that they were such a credit to the town. And also we were pleased they could sing so beautifully. And so, goodbye from Washington, the Washington Cathedral.
Little bit about, but we've got the inside story. We have Bobby Bunker with us, Polly Berry and Margie Fennell. They were all chaperones on the trip. I think Mrs. Berry, you had somebody in your family with you.
Yes, my daughter, Caroline.
Okay, so we've got the first-hand report here. I understand that somebody was late in leaving. Where did you leave from, Bobby?
We left from in front of Kennett.
In front of Kennett. Now, who in the world didn't show up in time?
I can't imagine. It was I.
Okay.
We had some donuts from one of the local donut shops were donated to be eaten.
Who donated them?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, yeah.
I was told to stop for them. I left a little late from my house. When I got to the donut shop, someone else had already picked the donuts up. Therefore, that made me a little late.
Yeah.
Getting to the bus, they had called my house, the police. I just made it, just barely. And I'm very glad I made it. Because
But generally speaking, everything went very smoothly. That's.
It certainly did. Everybody was there but me.
Yeah.
Right at 6 a.m. in the morning on Wednesday.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the mechanics of the trip down. How did it go?
The whole thing, I think, went really well.
We should say at this point, how many people on the bus? There were 16 chaperones.
Not all of whom were on the bus going down.
Okay.
We had one that came down in a plane, several in cars. We had.
Do you know roughly how many students were involved? Not an
Gee,
exact.
About
number.
85. About 85.
85. Well, I think that's interesting because that's a large number to move around on a.
Right. We had two full buses. Not school buses, coaches.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to be in bus 2, which had a laboratory.
Yeah.
And marvelous children. They really were nice.
Yes, Margie and I were on bus 2, and Polly was on bus 1.
Well, you don't mean that they were just marvelous on bus 2.
Well, I don't know anything about bus 1.
They were equally marvelous.
We must be very careful.
That's right.
That's right, right. Bus 1 was stopped en route in, I think it was Massachusetts for speeding. Bus 2 couldn't claim that. The kids thought that was pretty good.
Any stops on the way down?
We made 2 or 3 different stops, not any stops to eat. We had our lunches, bag lunches. We made a stop in Massachusetts to pick up one of the alumni. Almost missed her too. Got our signals crossed a little, but we made it. And then we had a couple of restroom stops.
And after New York, we had the tremendous excitement of the warnings of the storm in Washington, that the roads were closed, and that they had 4 inches of snow. And Mr. Wright got on the front of our bus at one of the stops and said we were going to be late. We were due there at 6:30, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. That we were going to be late. He didn't know whether we could get into Washington or not. The airport was closed.
So all the while we're waiting for the snow.
Was there any doubt at one point that maybe you couldn't enter the city?
Oh,
Was
yes.
concerned?
There was talk about where we would stay. We kept looking at all the motels along the way and thought how many there were of us that none of these could put us up.
So we finally got to Baltimore, which was very, very pretty, all lit up. Their new lights that they have there for their crime control are like what we have at the hospital, and it's sort of orangey. It was really lovely. The roads were wet. They had been out and salting them. No snow, not on the main roads anyway. There was a little on the side. And we kept on going, and there was some snow in Washington, inch and a half.
The most.
Another thing was the CBs. All the way down. They talked to the bus drivers and the truck drivers. And how did they get us into
Some
the
lady,
Some woman was.
some woman
Yeah.
was on a CB near the buses, and she took us right into the
4-H.
4-H center. And we arrived at the 4-H center about,
6:30.
just about.